Now, do you want to be more organized, more effective, and become a master in time and task management in your daily job, your business, and other area of your life? For example, your relationships, your personal development, and your hobbies. And do you want to have a feeling of control over your schedule? Do you want to reduce stress, overwhelm, and anxiety? Now, if you say yes to all of these things, then this video is for you, because I will describe to you step by step one of the best time and task management systems out there. And for reference, I used to work as a project manager in the pharmaceutical industry in two different pharma companies, GSK and Boehringer Ingelheim, and of course, I had to be organized. So at least if you don't want to drown in random tasks, and if you want to actually get things done, then you need a good time and task management system. And in this context, of Stephen Covey, you might know him from his books. And again, in particular book I want to point out here is called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And as the name implies, he talks about how extremely productive and effective people manage their time, which includes the use of the so-called Eisenhower Matrix. Now, before we get into the Eisenhower Matrix, what you need to understand is that to-do lists are not a productivity tool. If you think that having a to-do list makes you more productive, if you're still using it for this purpose, then let me tell you that you are wrong. Chances are that the to-do list actually even harms you. On the other hand, the Eisenhower Matrix is a tool that allows you to make your to-do list useful for productivity, because it allows you to sort the tasks on your to-do list according to their urgency and importance. And once you have that, the next step is then to take the key tasks that you have identified and again, schedule them, distribute them over the week. And this video will give you a tutorial to show you how to exactly do this. Now that said, there are also some smaller issues with the Eisenhower Matrix, which is why I will also tell you how you can tweak things and what additional mini things you have to do to become even more effective. Now, if you're excited, please take a moment to drop a like and subscribe. It would help me and the channel out a lot if you could do that real quick. And let's dive right in. My name is Nicholas. I'm a neuroscientist, dementia researcher, as well as a high performance and flow coach. And this is the time and task management for highly effective people. Now, first and foremost, what you need to understand is that to-do lists are not a productivity tool. Let me repeat that. To-do lists by themselves are not a productivity tool. There are actually many issues with to-do lists, and I put down some of them for you guys here. And the first one would be the fact that there is no task prioritization. In other words, what the hell is actually important? You usually don't put that down in a to-do list, but you have like 100 tasks down there, so good luck. The next thing would also be that there is typically no deadline. There's no time dependence. There's no sorting. So which of these 100 tasks on your to-do list do you actually do first? Good question. Next thing would also be the fact that most tasks, or you don't know what tasks are actually relevant for your goals and what tasks are relevant for success and of course to make money. Next would be the fact that there's probably 90% irrelevant busy work on your to-do list. So once again, you obviously won't be able to do all of the 100 tasks, and if 90% is junk and you never sort out the junk, the busy work, then you will be in trouble. In fact, I would argue that the productivity tool will be more of a distraction for you and distract you from the tasks that are actually important. And next would also be the consequences. So are there any consequences if you don't do the task? You probably have 100 on the list. I would argue that 95, if you don't do them, nothing happens. So, because they're just not important. But if you miss the 5 that are actually important, that get you into real trouble, such as paying your taxes, for example. Once again, think about that. A to-do list is not helping you in this sense. Again, it's not a productivity tool. And lastly, of course, scheduling. That is also what a to-do list doesn't do. That means that when do you actually do the task? You have 100 tasks on your freaking to-do list. When do you do them? Probably never. So another big issue here is, and that is what most people do, in fact, they simply focus on the quick win tasks. It could be, you might jot down, answer the emails in my to-do list, fix the problem of my colleague, he needs something for his project, so let's do it now. And most people, again, they just focus on these quick wins, because it makes them feel good. And there's a point to it, because every time you complete a task, your brain releases a little bit of dopamine. And dopamine gives you this rewarding feeling. You feel nice, but you don't get anything important done. All you do is wasting your time. So it's a treacherous feeling, in fact. And you keep doing that, you make no progress whatsoever. That means no relevant progress towards your goals. And what ends up happening is that the typical usual to-do list hinders you in accomplishing your goals. It rather decreases your productivity than increasing it. That brings us to the question, what is the actual purpose of a to-do list? And I put it down for you here. And the point of a to-do list is to reduce your cognitive load. Because what you need to understand is that our working memory capacity is limited. It's comparable to the bandwidth of a computer, so you can only do a set amount of things at once. It's like a bar, 100%, and I gave you an example here on the slide. So if you have 100% attention, then some of the attention you can obviously use to focus on your task. But there might be other things going on simultaneously that reduce your overall focus. So as I put down here in this example, might be that your colleague just knocks at the door and needs your help. So of course your working mind is occupied with that. How can I help my colleague? Seems to be urgent. It always is urgent, of course. Then another thing could be dinner. Food is actually a common distraction. I'm not joking, it's true. And you might think about, what the hell should I eat for dinner? Maybe I should try the new Chinese dish. Maybe I should cook something Italian. I don't know. But simply this thought, this decision that you need to make, it occupies your working mind and it reduces your total capacity to focus. Other things could be, maybe you think about the deadline. Maybe there's a deadline of a project that's coming in and you're all worried. Oh no, did I forget something? I need to check my to-do list. There are probably 1,000 things on there, but I need to figure out what I need to do. So again, that occupies your mind. Or maybe you fought with your wife. Could also be. Maybe you're still emotionally in this state. Maybe you're still upset. Maybe you're sad. Whatever it is, that also occupies your cognitive mind. Even ignoring things occupies your working memory, because that's also an active process. So the point being is that the more you have going on in your brain, the less capacity you have to focus on your actual work, and the poorer your focus will be. And of course, that is where to-do lists are very helpful, because to-do lists are cognitive deloading tools. They are cognitive dumps, you could say. And to-do lists help you to increase your focus, because you can write down whatever's going on in your brain. It could be your thoughts, it could be choices that you have to make, such as, what dish should I eat? You could just write down, eat Chinese this evening, set done, it's out of your brain. It could be tasks, that's what it's actually meant for, tasks that need to be completed. You can just jot them down on a piece of paper. It doesn't need to be pretty, and it's out of your brain. And because it's out of your brain now, you don't have to hold it in your working memory anymore. Your working memory frees up, and you have more focus, again, to focus on your actual task. That brings us to the question, how the heck do you make to-do lists actually useful? And a possible solution would be the Eisenhower Matrix. Now, we'll get to that in a second. Now, the Eisenhower Matrix was coined by Dwight David Eisenhower, who was the 34th president of the US, in fact. He was also an army commander, for example, Supreme Commander in World War II. So obviously he had to prioritize what is important. As an army leader, you are in charge of many people. You have many lives under your wing, And of course, you can't do random stuff. You have to make decisions that actually are important for the survival of people. So of course, you had to figure out a system to be very effective and figure out the tasks that are important. And as he mentioned often, or one of his famous quotes, is that what is important is seldom urgent, and what is urgent is seldom important. What it means in a second. And this is the Eisenhower Matrix. You have probably seen it before, especially if you are in the field of project management. And once again, there are 4 quadrants, and you typically differentiate between important and urgent. Now, important, as the name says, that is how relevant is the task for your goals, for your success. And on the other hand, you have urgent. That means that's time-wise, that means how immediate does the task have to be done. Again, if the deadline for paying your taxes is tomorrow, that's probably quite urgent. If the deadline for your taxes is in 3 months, probably not urgent. And again, here are the 4 quadrants. Now the first one on the upper left, the important and urgent tasks. So those are those you should do immediately. Again, those have high priority. And it could be, for example, be that you have a very important key client that sends you a hate email. We all love those, of course. And that you should respond to, because again, your client is probably not going to wait 3 days. And if it's a key client, if this client is very important to you, then you better make sure that you respond soon. Another thing could be a proposal. Maybe you could be a job opportunity, for example, and you got the contract on your table, but you only got 3 days to sign it. So this could be a very big thing for your future career, but you only have 3 days, so you better hurry up and sign this thing if your career is important to you. So these would be examples for that. Another thing would then, of course, be quadrant 2, which is the important but not urgent quadrant. And these are the ones you should, according to this one at least, how it's typically said, you should schedule these. I disagree with the fact that you plan to finish those later, but what I agree with is that you should do deep work sessions. That means that you block out time, 2 hours, ideally, in which you only work on those important tasks. We will get into more detail here about quadrant 2 in a second, because, spoiler alert, this is the most important quadrant of all of them by far. And examples for that could be a product strategy. Maybe you want to establish a new product in your business. And again, a new product, that is what actually makes you money. That is what will grow your business. So it's an extremely important task, but it's not really urgent. There's no deadline for creating a new product. On the other hand, what could also be maybe a staff onboarding process. Maybe you want to train your staff better so that they do better work. Maybe in your restaurant. Maybe you want to train your waiters so that they serve the customers better. And of course, that will give you better ratings, better credentials. And if you have better ratings, then you will probably attract more customers. But once again, not urgent. You can do that anywhere, but you should do it because it is extremely important for your future success. Other that I will briefly touch on would be the not important but urgent quadrant 3. And you typically delegate those tasks because they're typically busy work. You need to do it because it's urgent. It has to be done soon. But yeah, it's simply not important, and emails would be perfect for that. Or it could be a weekly update report. You have to, of course, hand in your update report, but your update report doesn't make you money. It doesn't make you money in your business. And of course, lastly, eliminate. Definitely, whatever goes into this is junk. So simply whatever goes into quadrant 4, you just eliminate completely. You don't even look at those tasks. And a very common thing would be emails. Most people just waste their goddamn time by checking the email inbox. And I'm not kidding, because the average person does that 36 times a day. Even had the statistics back then. And of course, meetings. Most people, or the average project manager, I know it because I am from this space, again, has the entire day filled with meetings, and many of them are just useless, I have to say. So these are things that you should avoid as much as possible. Now, that is the point I wanted to address, and that is what Stephen Covey suggests. Now, Stephen Covey, you'll probably know him from his book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And according to him, again, an expert in time management and task management, what you should focus on is those quadrant 2 activities. You should live a quadrant 2 lifestyle. In fact, I would argue that you should spend 60% of your time on quadrant 2 activities. 60% of the tasks that you do should be from quadrant 2. And of course, you should also periodically schedule quadrant 1 activities, the urgent ones. Of course, you can't avoid them. And the point here is, he mentioned this in his book, in fact, that said ineffective managers, they tend to be consumed to quadrant 1 and quadrant 3 activities. So ineffective managers tend to do the urgent tasks. It was put on your desk, must be done immediately. And that's what the ineffective manager does, because the ineffective manager is reactive. He reacts to whatever happens during the day, but the ineffective manager doesn't think long-term. And again, it's this long-term thinking. What will make me successful in the future? That you will get with quadrant 2 focus. You focus on the tasks that are important but not urgent. And obviously, if you do quadrant 4 activities and you check your emails 36 times a day, then you're doing something very wrong. I can tell you that, and I'm pretty sure that we agree on that. Alright, now how do you actually use the Eisenhower Matrix? Very simple, in fact. So first and foremost, you list out all of your to-dos. So you actually need your to-do list to start with, but ideally you separate it for each life area. So you should make a to-do list for your career, so professional to-do list. Then you should also make one for your relationships. At least if your family and maybe getting a girlfriend is important to you, and your friends, you should do that. Then one for personal development, very important, because most people skip the part of, again, going to courses, reading books, things like teaching themselves new skills. Many people skip that, but that is one of the habits that highly effective people, in fact, have. They look after themselves. They constantly level up. And lastly, hobbies, of course, because we don't only want to focus on our professional and career. We don't only want to focus on our relationships, but we also want to focus on our personal self-actualization. Hobbies could be the gym. I love strength training, so I always have my strength training down. I have it planned down to the T. I make sure I go shopping, get my food, etc. So make sure to focus on your hobbies as well, for your own sake. Anyhow, after you have done those to-do lists for those 4 areas, what you need to do is then just sort those to-dos, sort them in the quadrant 1, quadrant 2, quadrant 3, and quadrant 4 of the Eisenhower Matrix. You can do that however you want. No need to be sophisticated. Simply grab a Word document, make a table, 4 spaces, write it down. That's what I did, in fact. I'll just grab an Excel sheet. Works just as well. Anyhow, now lastly, what you need to do is compare the individual tasks in each quadrant and sort them amongst each other in their significance or importance. So you might have 5 tasks in quadrant 1, but which of the 5 tasks sits at the top? Which of the 5 tasks should you do first? And in order to figure that out, you can use the 5 points I mentioned down here, so the 5 indicators. And the first one would be you should look at the task due date. Again, the more urgent it is, if it's due tomorrow, then you should probably do it immediately. And again, you do that for each of the 4 quadrants, or yeah, you can skip quadrant 4. Again, those tasks we don't care about anyhow. But from quadrant 1 to 3, in quadrant 1, make sure you put the most urgent ones at the top. In quadrant 2, put the most urgent ones at the top, etc. Then the next step would be to look at the value of doing the tasks. So how beneficial are those tasks for your goals? Do they make you money? Do they get you closer to your goals? And again, you can score it between 1 to 5. 1 means low relevance. So again, this task, even though it's in this quadrant, maybe in quadrant 1, just not important. And 5 means that it's extremely useful. For example, if you are developing a new product for your business that you can sell, then that's extremely valuable because once again, the success of your business and making money are both dependent on your product, on making your product. The third thing would be the consequences of not doing the task. Obviously, if you have extremely high consequences, then you should do it immediately. Then you should put the task at the top. And one of the things would, for example, be, again, paying your taxes. If you don't pay your taxes, then you run into big legal issues that could even shut down your business. So you better make sure that you pay your taxes. Another thing would be the estimated time to complete the task. Although in this case, I would say it's less important for prioritizing, but more for future planning. I just put it down for you to keep it in mind with those tasks. Because let's say you want to develop a new product. Chances are that developing a new product takes a few months, if not years. And of course, even though it is very important to you, of course, so you need to make sure that you on a weekly basis, plan in time, schedule time to work on your product in order to, again, have it done one day, have it completed one day. And lastly, that is one thing you should also do in addition to that, and that is that you should ask the stakeholders of the task that you need to do for their opinion. What this means is that you want to see clarity on their expectations. Let's say you have a project. Maybe you have to submit work for another project that's not yours. And in this case, it's very important that you talk to the person in charge of the project and ask them what the hell they actually expect. Because once again, if you're clear on the expectations, you can put all of the irrelevant busy work aside and you can just focus on knocking out a few things that you actually need to do that are expected from you. And yeah, get it done. Move on to the next thing, because the worst thing you can do is just working into the dark and trying to do things that are actually not important, that are actually not even required from you. All right, now that we have our entire matrix set up, our Eisenhower matrix, you need to schedule things, because having the to-do list is of course nice, but ultimately that is something I keep repeating, that is that if it's not scheduled, then it won't be done. Let me repeat that. If it's not scheduled, then it won't be done. That is why the typical to-do list is useless, because just having tasks on a to-do list won't just magically make them done. Alright, so in this particular case, what you should do is reserve 30 minutes every weekend. I would suggest on a Sunday in order to do the planning, pre-plan your entire week, that is. And first and foremost, what you should do is reevaluate the tasks that you have put down in quadrant 1, 2, 3, and maybe you can even move some of them into quadrant 4, which is always nice. Again, try to get rid of the irrelevant tasks. Then of course you can sort them amongst priority once again, and you can add any new task that will put on your plate. And again, the thing here is not to do this exercise once, but to keep doing it, because chances are that your priorities will change, and they will change almost on a daily basis. So make sure that you update your Eisenhower matrix every week. Next would then be to schedule. Now we get to the actual scheduling step. So you can take the little, for example, the little template I put down here. You would do it in this way. And then, yeah, just plug in your quadrant 2 activities. Ideally, 60% of the tasks that you do are quadrant 2 activities. And of course, you plug in your quadrant 1 activities as needed. Of course, you need to knock them out as well. And Ideally, that is what Stephen Covey suggests. You put down tasks that belong to every life area. So don't skip something, don't just be a workaholic. You also need to schedule tasks that are related to your relationship goals, to your personal development, and to your hobbies, of course. So what you can do in this time, or in this case, what you should do, is do it in 30-minute blocks. Now in this example here, it's 1 hour blocks. I would personally recommend 30-minute blocks. And the way you can do it is to use Excel. You can just make an Excel sheet, copy it and paste it for each week, and just put in your schedule, plan your week in advance. Other than that, what you can use is, of course, Outlook calendar, 365 Office calendar. You can use a freaking handwritten schedule like I do here, for example. Just basically write it down. Anyhow, it doesn't matter what you use. Again, it doesn't have to be sophisticated. Just use whatever you are comfortable with. And of course, what you also want to do, so don't forget about that, that is that you need to include recurring events. It could be traveling. So if you need to drive to work for 30 minutes, that goes into your schedule as well. If you need time to eat lunch, you probably do. We all need to eat at some point. Then you put that down as well. And it's always nice to have a little bit of buffer time, so don't overplan. But then again, the more often you do it, the better you will adjust to it and the better you will be in terms of planning. So just get started to begin with. And besides that, obviously, you put in fixed appointments. If you have a dentist appointment on Tuesday at 10 a.m., then you put that down. Whatever else it is. If you have a meeting that you cannot skip, then you put that down. So these are the fixed appointments, of course, that also must be put into your template, into your weekly schedule. And most importantly, don't forget time for yourself. You can't just work all day, all night. So make sure you put in some recovery time. Schedule some activities that are just for you. It could even be watching a Netflix movie in the evening, but make sure that you have something again to calm down, to wind down, especially at the end of the day. Lastly, after you have your entire weekly schedule, every morning what you need to do is look at your weekly schedule and then make adjustments. Because the reality is that there will be unforeseen events. It's entirely normal. In fact, my own sister, she was, fun fact, a client of mine, high performance client. My own sister asked me for a weekly method to become more spontaneous, more flexible, because she was working at Subway and studying at the same time. And that was the problem, that those employees from Subway, they were notified at the same day, partially a few hours before they had to work. And my answer to that was, simply put, again, do the weekly planning, but at the beginning of each day, make sure that you simply rearrange, adjust your day as needed. However, there's one big caveat, and there's one thing that the Eisenhower Matrix doesn't do, or doesn't imply, doesn't want you to do, and that is that you need to set goals. You need to set goals to make the Eisenhower Matrix effective in the first place. Why is that? Simply because that if you don't have goals, you don't know what tasks are actually important. You don't know what tasks are important if you don't have goals. Because every task you do should contribute towards accomplishing your goals. And of course, if you have a business, then every task you do should contribute to making more money. So at the very minimum, what I recommend you is to set yearly goals. That's the very minimum. Ideally, you have 3-year goals, 5-year goals, or even a longer span. But then again, at the very minimum, yearly goals. I have mine in front of you at the wall here, for example. And then you can break down. Once you have yearly goals, you can go back, set quarterly goals. You can say your top 3 monthly goals, your top 3 weekly goals, and your top 3 daily goals. And what I recommend you to do in this case is to do that along with your weekly review. So again, you do your weekly review, 30 minutes on Sundays, to pre-plan your week, to plug in your quadrant 2 and quadrant 1 activities from your Eisenhower Matrix. And along with that, definitely review your goals. Set goals. So set your top 3 goals for the week. Set your top 3 goals for every day. You can adjust the daily goals as you go, of course. Alright, and this concludes the video, guys. So thank you for watching, and if the video was insightful for you, please hit the like and subscribe button to stay in the loop for more high performance and of course neuroscience content to help you become your best self. Also, I'm curious, have you been using to-do lists before? And what have been your preferred ways to manage your time and tasks? Let me know in the comments. Also, when it comes to the Eisenhower Matrix, what I presented to you in this video, let me say that will probably feel weird the first time you try to use these things, and that is fine, because you learn by doing it. And the more often and the more regular you use the planning system I showed you in this video, the more effective you will become also in using it. So just try, give it a go. And let me know in the comments how it went for you. Again, I'm your coach to support you in your endeavors after all. Alright, that's it. Make sure to identify those key tasks that propel you forward, schedule your week like a highly effective person would, and, of course, have an extremely productive week, guys. See you in the next video.